Hello and welcome back, everybody, to our third project for the evening. And let me just do this. Got it. Okay. And today, or for now, we're going to be making this beautiful epoxy clay little pendant here that will be then strung on some beading wire. And we're going to be using quite a few techniques to do this, including some clay sculpting from this epoxy clay sculpt. This stuff I've only used a couple times before, but Christy Friesen really turned me on to it. And boy, is it a compliment to Silver Silk. You can really do just about anything with this stuff. And in this case, my silkies were asking about getting more donuts or something in the shop, and this was sort of my response to it. So I wanted to create something that was ultra sparkly and ultra glittery for this particular workshop, and to have it easy to make especially. So I'm excited to get to it. Real quick, some basic rules for folks that are just now tuning in for the later part of the show. Miss Joan Dice is so kind to monitor the questions and some of the camera work that's happening behind the scenes. So let's all give her a round of applause for helping out. And thank you, Joan. So if you guys have any questions, you can hit up the chat and just ask away in there, and we will try and answer those questions to the best of my capability. And if not, can send you to some resources that will fulfill some of those responses, some of those questions. But otherwise, since I'm already turned to my workboard, I don't know if you guys can see, I did a little minor wardrobe change because we're in the second half of our show here. And of course, a wardrobe change is always welcomed for such occasions. Okay, so while I'm here, I'm going to talk about the stuff, the tools that I'm going to be using, and then talk about the materials included for this project. So when you had grabbed your Stardust and Sparkles kit, you will have received two different clay, essentially clay-esque mediums here. I'm trying to search for the right words. Part A and Part B. You'll need both of these. And we're not going to be using the entire carton of this, actually. We're only going to be using a quarter of each, and you're going to be mixing equal parts. This is going to go a long ways for lots of donut making. So using a quarter just to practice is going to be perfect, especially to make this size donut. So have that handy, as well as a couple of latex gloves if you want to. I don't have skin sensitivity, but I just worked so hard on my manicure that I decided it was a good idea to go ahead and put on some gloves for this particular step, which will be mixing our clay. So I'm going to stick those on my hands here. Again, I don't have any skin sensitivity really, and I don't have to wear the gloves through the entire process of jewelry making, or at least donut making. I just need it. I need to wear it long enough to mix the two substances here together and get it nice and flowy. So other than these two items, you'll also need some sort of a plastic surface to work on. So this might be some sort of a silicone pad, baking pad that you have at home that you won't ever use ever again. Or you can just use a little plastic baggie, which comes with any of the orders that you probably have gotten from me. So just have those baggies handy. I like to use the big, 4x4, or I think this is 5x5 work surface to use. And it's nice to also just recycle some of the plastic baggies that you have and get more usage out of it. Otherwise, I also have my handy dandy soft flex wire. We will be using this for our necklace rope today for this project. And so just have a couple feet of that ready to go. You'll need a clasp as well. So I've got that handy. And then you will need your mica powder. This would be better. Okay, so I like using my fingers for this, for applying this onto my donut. I'm also a 2-year-old child, and I like to get into all kinds of things without, proper protocols, if you will. So by the time I do take off my gloves, I'm actually literally just going to dip my finger into this and then rub my donut all over to get that mica powder to really have that nice opaque finish. And it doesn't rub off once you actually apply it on. And I did test this with rubbing my finger and everything, and it all held in place to my surprise. So if you want to use a brush and not be a 2-year-old child, first of all, I feel sorry for you, because being a 2-year-old child is so much fun. But also, I do understand, because again, skin sensitivity, if you know you're going to be allergic to something, please use a tool if you need to. In this case, a Q-tip or a brush would be perfect for the mica powder. Also be careful when you open this up, because it's taped, and in shipping, mica powder moves around, its powder. So when you open it, make sure you do it over some sort of a surface that you don't, in case you do get it all over the place, because this stuff is kind of a bitch to clean up, I will say that. So we will also need a crystal, one of these lighter blue colored ones, the Rondelle, and then I believe I used a, here we go. Oh, and don't have a fan close by. Yes, Gail, words of wisdom. Ventilation is important, but it's important to not have it blowing in your face, because otherwise you're going to get a whole lot of glitter everywhere, and you certainly will be seeing stardust and sparkles for a very long time. It's probably not a bad thing, but you don't want it with mica powder. As Stephanie says, she's working off of a newspaper. That is perfect. Great. I'm going to start with the epoxy clay first and go ahead and get this glove stuff out of the way. So when you open up each of your containers here, I'm just going to kind of eyeball about a quarter amount, which again, it doesn't require a whole lot for the donut. You can go with roughly the size of a quarter, in fact, if you roll it out. There we go. So I just got a nice little dollop of it. And of course, the more clay you use, the bigger your donut's going to be. So just something to also keep in mind. I should have opened these before. Got my gloves dirty. There we go. And it requires, again, the same amount for each of these mediums to be mixed. Now, this is my version of it. And again, I learned it from Miss Christine Friesen, who is a polymer clay genius, also a force to be reckoned with her geniusness and her business savvy-likeness in the industry. She's contributed so much. So if you don't know about Christy Friesen, please go look her up. She is amazing and just a fun person also. Very charismatic, I will say that. So I have 2 equal parts of the same stuff, and I've got lots of stuff, lots of epoxy clay later to work with if I want to make more donuts. So I'm just going to spend some time now mixing both of these 2 mediums, these 2 substances up together until it starts to become really, really nice and supple and easy to work with, soft, and it's all the same color. Now you can see how much residue is coming off. Again, this wouldn't normally bother me, but I would have to run to the sink quite a few times to wash my hands off before proceeding to the next step. So probably having the gloves is a great idea. Wipes nearby is a good plan also. Yes, Trish, more words of wisdom from our silkies. Okay, just keep going with it. Now, the thing with epoxy clay is that you have a limited amount of time before it starts to harden and dry completely. This amount of time can vary between 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on where you are, what the moisture level is in your house, what your altitude is. There's all kinds of things involved, but I would say roughly about 45 minutes is going to be the best workable time for whatever you decide to make with the epoxy clay, whether it be a donut or some sort of a figurine. You do have about 45 minutes before it starts to really harden. The thing is, the longer you wait, the more hard it does get, because it's not going to instantly dry up, right? It's going to take time to get harder and harder until it's finally like completely hardened. Okay, so I've mixed it up. I can take my gloves off and I don't have to worry about residue now. So the trick here is to get this donut shaped to where I gotta peel my sleeves back. I'm gonna roll this up into a little ball. as such. And you can see how much clay I've got here to work with. And I'm going to just pinch down in the center until my clay, ooh, I got a little, you want to make sure that you don't have any of that extra cracking if you can avoid it. Okay, there we go. I did squish it a little bit. I'm sure that'll help. There we go. What you want to do is start to just pinch the middle until you get a very thin layer happening. And once that thin layer occurs, you can actually break that and start to just peel and use your finger to kind of make that come backwards against the pen. So this will be my front side, and then I'll have a back side, which will look, well, uglier. But luckily, we don't have to display it. And that's basically my donut shape. There's really nothing to it. It's very, very easy to form. Sally is asking, does the epoxy clay come in other colors besides black, or do you use mica powder to color? Great question, Sally. The epoxy clay does come in different colors. I believe Christy Friesen carries those different colors in her store. I will say the mica powder adds all kinds of possibilities to it. Now, if you think about it in terms of silver silk, I have different color tinsels that work with the different colors of wire. And when you mix those two together, it creates a whole different color. Well, epoxy clay and the mica powders are pretty similar. If you have a darker color and you're using a different color mica powder with it, it will probably, that translucency of the mica powder will change tone once you apply it to your pendant. So in this case, I even tried mixing the powder with the clay and it came out too dark. And then I realized and discovered that if I just, basically what I'm about to show you next, which is finger dipping with the mica powder and just directly painting it onto, you guys can see already how much like messy this is gonna be. But this is fun for me. And I don't have skin sensitivity, so I could go right into this. But you can see once I just start to pick it up and rub it across, it becomes super opaque. So rather than mixing it in with the clay, I can just use my fingers to paint this right on. And, or if you've got a brush, by all means, you can use it. I don't know if it'll give you the same, like, really hard-hitting effect that it does here. There will be a point where I probably have to get up and wash my hands too and make sure I can still use the computer mouse and stuff without too many issues. I didn't think to cover it with saran wrap or something, which I probably should have. That's okay. Okay, I am just going to coat that all the way around. And I should say that the mica powder is non-toxic, so you don't have to worry about, you know, gross stuff happening to you as you're working with this. It has been a disclaimer on there that I didn't let you guys know ahead of time, but better late than never, especially for something that's non-toxic. So I am just working all the way around on this little pendant here. And I'm gonna coat everywhere. I'm gonna coat the top part, I'm gonna coat the inside. I don't necessarily need to cover the back side of this, so I'm just gonna ignore it and allow it to dry. I'm gonna move this guy. I'm gonna allow it to dry right onto my plastic, and my plastic will then just peel right off. Once it's dry. Emily says, this seems like a good time to post Candy's quote, learning something new in 2022. Ah, I do love a good rhyme, and Candy is also full of wisdom. So that was a lovely quote. Thank you for sharing that with us, Em. Look at how mermaidy this looks. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am a sucker for teal and or anything blue. That looks really good to me. I could spend a little bit more time maybe smoothing out the inside, but I'm not too worried about it, especially because I got beads coming on here in a second too. So I'm just gonna actually screw this right up. Lots of mica powder in case you want to make some extra donuts later on with your extra epoxy clay. I did hook you guys up pretty well with that stuff. And if I know you guys pretty well, I know that you'll want to create more either donuts or something else that's special outside of this class with the epoxy clay. So there you go. I've got a solid, shiny donut that when it dries, it will not come off at all. It's perfect. So I'm going to just work with what I've got. And now you can get out all those little beautiful little faceted blue beads that look like that. Mine are going to be somewhat coated now in mica powder, but that's okay. It's again, we're just having some fun here. And I think I don't think the rest of the projects use these beads that I can think of. You may want to save a couple out to the side, but as far as I remember, I don't think they do. But really, you don't need too many because you're just trying to basically rhinestone the donut pendant at this point. You do want to leave purposely a little area that's not got any beads on it, because that's the part that we're going to wrap our silver silk with. So when designing this, I think that you can kind of take this, whoops, and start from the middle and work out. So let's see, let's start with right here. And you can just kind of go in and push it down. It doesn't have to be completely pushed in all the way, but just enough to grasp on to the glass is really about all you need of the faceted bead. Okay, so about less than halfway to halfway. And you just work yourself around, creating a nice little like pattern here. So I'm gonna go there. And then if you placed it in these 4 areas, then you can kind of go in between and just come out a little bit on the side here. Oops. Kind of like the pacifier that Joan kindly posted earlier. The same pattern and the same color scheme. That was delightful, Joan. Like that.
I couldn't resist.
Okay, looks like I can kind of come here. Again, I want to leave myself a little bit of room here to include the silver silk when we get to that point. I will say, if you have taken any classes for epoxy clay with Christy, you may have picked up a tool that looks like this. And I've got a couple extras for our trivia question for later in our class. I'm going to ask, and I'm going to give away 2 of those. Okay. So just kind of come in and fill in some of these blank spots with the beads, and you are going to be in great sparkly shape here. I'm going to hold this up once I get my beads inserted in, and you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So it's going to look a little organic, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. There should be plenty of beads if you really want to crystal it up, make it super shiny. So here's what I have. I think I'm going to add a couple more, but I got my outer edge there pretty full. So I think I just kind of need one maybe right there. And then you could even put a couple on the inside of your donut. Oops. Here we go. Easy breezy. All right. So that's pretty much it to the donut making. I'm curious to see how you guys will make your donuts and to see how you guys crystallize it. Of course, it's going to take, again, another hour to cure. So I'm going to actually hit pause on this video, and then I'm going to wash my... Once your epoxy clay had a chance to cure, it should look like this, and it's nice and hard on both sides, and the mica powder does not chip off. You'll want to grab 2 feet of soft flex beading wire. I have this in extreme silver. You'll want just a little bit of your flat mesh that you cut previously. This is probably way more than you need, but I'm gonna go ahead and leave that all out. You'll need 3 crimps right here, 2mm soft flex crimps. You'll need a flat mesh crimp. I have one here in dark rhodium. I've got my clasp, and then I've got a few select beads that I'm going to just decorate with, and this one's that metallic blue color. This one's the Rondelle that's in the light sapphire color, and then we've got the smaller Rondelle that's in the lavender color. The first thing you'll do is grab your flat mesh, and you're just going to measure it around and wrap it around that donut as such, so that you'll want to have your flat mesh there at the top, fairly close to the donut to where it's hugging, but not quite. There we go. And once that feels pretty secure, you can actually go ahead and clip off the extra flat mesh and then just give the end here a nice press. This is the part where you'll pick up your flat mesh crimp with the logo side facing up, and then you'll just fit that right over the 2 chains. And then I'm gonna grab my flat wide nose pliers and just crimp, and it should be nice and secure now. And at this point, you can go ahead and string up your beads. So I'm gonna grab my 2 feet of soft flex wire. I'll just thread that right through that flat mesh crimp. And then I'm gonna gather both of these strands here at the end and then just figure out a way to bead here. I think I'm gonna do the blue bead first, and then I'm gonna do my lavender color one, and then I will do my smaller, the sapphire one, and then the lavender one, so that they all fall there at the bottom, and it's nice and just decorated, I guess. Beaded up, if you will. So I can now string on my crimp, and I'm going to just crimp it here at the bottom, and I'm just gonna use a standard pair of crimp pliers and just crimp it per usual. Okay, that looks really good. And I'm ready to now attach my clasp. You can add beads onto this cord if you want to. I like the silver color by itself, so I'm just gonna leave it plain. I'm gonna leave it by itself and use that as my chain. So you can just create a small little loop, go back into your crimp, and then give it a good squeeze. I'm gonna do that to both sides before I trim off the ends here. Perfect. They should both be even strands on either side, just because I worked from the middle out in the beginning step there. And now all I have to do is just trim my wire, and it's ready to go. If it'll come out here. There we go. Perfect. Boom. Finished from head to toe.